the Daily Ramble podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, this is my Daily Ramble. Sorry I've not been around for a few days. Had a busy weekend, very good weekend actually, and as you know, I've gone a little bit cold on a transfer window. I'm a little bit sulky, and also I didn't want to sort of go sucking the jam out of everyone's donut. I can see that many people were very excited by it, and so you should be. We should be excited for the upcoming season. So I've been trying to sort of keep a can on my frustrations with the window so far. This show is going to be about the good, the bad, and the ugly from some information that I've received today. So, like I said, I've gone a bit cold on I didn't speak to anyone in relation to transfers, but I've done some chasing today. I've done some digging, and I've got some good news, some bad news, and some pretty ugly news, to be quite honest. Before we get started, please drop a like on this video because it does really help us. It does. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Inspires me, keeps me happy. And don't forget, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe as well. It doesn't cost anything. Just subscribe, support the channel. It does really help. Okay, where to start? So the person that I spoke to, the chap that I spoke to, is the same man that gave me the news about John Duran and Matthias Soulé. So John Duran I knew about a week before I even released it, which was 2 weeks before anyone else reported it. Or 3 weeks even. Soulé, I knew about that one. I got told about both players at the same time. But I was told to hold off on it. And Romano broke that one. It really annoyed me. Because it was like the day after I was told not to report it. And then Romano broke it. Or 2 days before. But whatever. He's reliable. He's given me a bit of an update as to where he expects our window to go and what our primary targets are and what he expects us to get done. And also he explains what he thinks the hold-up is on some of our transfers. So I'm going to go into all this as well. Right. First of all, I've spoken about Matthias Soulé a lot. You know I have. We know that he's been linked with Leicester. We know that Leicester want the player. But I've also said the whole way along that that player has met with West Ham. I think Lopetegui's also spoken to him as well. He's sold on the move to West Ham. He does want the move to West Ham. If the choice is between Leicester and West Ham, the player's going to push for West Ham, and he is. But we want the player. It's thought and it's suspected that we're going to get that deal done. But the reason it's being delayed, I'll go on to explain a little bit after. So let's just talk about the primary targets first. So Matthias Soulé is a primary target. Expected that we could get this deal done. The other one is John Duran. John Duran, I've been talking about for ages. Expected to get this deal done. We're just playing games, trying to drive the price down even more, or we're delaying it until we sell someone so that we can get some money in to fund the deal, because there's either a cash flow problem or an FFP issue here. We don't know. But there is a reason why we're stalling. We're stalling on deals. We've got them queued up, but we're not pushing the button just yet. So, yeah, we'll go on to talk about that in a minute. So, John Duran as well. A player that I'd not really even heard of. I'd never even really heard the name, but I've done some research on him just now, and wow, what a player. And that's Rios. Is it Richard Rios? I've probably got his name wrong. 1 second. I shall tell you what his name is. His name is Richard Rios, the 24-year-old Colombian central midfielder. Plays for Palmeiras, the same team that Guilherme came from. In fact, there's a quote from Guilherme saying that Richard Rios is the best player that he's ever played with. He was an absolute star in the Copa America. Very highly rated, very highly coveted. This is a player that apparently West Ham were offered a few windows ago now. And repeat windows, but we've kind of ignored it until he's made a name for himself. And now we're going to pay an awful lot more at this stage than what we would have before. But he's very, very, very high on our radar. We want the player. We like the player. But we're not on our own because he had a good tournament. So apparently Man United are also sniffing around this player. They haven't made a bid. If Man United do, we're probably blown out of the water because they're in Europe and they're Man United. But he is a player that Lopetegui and Tim definitely want. So Richard Rios. So that's exciting. That's a new name that I've not heard of. The other one is Ivan Toney. Apparently we are trying to push on and architect a deal for this player. Now, the only thing that confuses me with this, because I'd be happy with Ivan Toney and I'd be happy with John Duran. I don't know that... Well, John Duran ain't going to come to West Ham to play second fiddle to Ivan Toney because he's kicking off at playing second fiddle to Ollie Watkins. So that can't be the case. Maybe it's either or. Maybe it's one or the other. However, I am told that we're trying to find suitors for Antonio. So maybe they do want 2 strikers. But again, I think you might be buying in a problem then. Because if Ivan Toney comes in, he starts, obviously, John Duran ain't going to be happy sitting on the bench. Unless we do use him as a wide kind of inside forward, because he can play wide. I've suggested this before. So I think that could work really well. Yeah, I don't see why not. That you probably could get them both in the same team. Right, going through the list, I am told that although we're linked with the Naif Aguirre of Bayern Munich, the player who they bought in for a ridiculous amount of money, and now they're trying to sell him for a cut price deal because he weren't as good as what he looked in the World Cup. I can't think of his name, but that latest right back, it's just another tactical. So I'm being told it's just another tactical bid to scare Southampton into lowering their asking price for Kyle Walker-Peters, who I'm told is still and remains our primary target. It wasn't Aaron Wan-Bissaka, it is Kyle Walker-Peters. We was using Aaron Wan-Bissaka, so I'm told to scare Southampton into lowering their asking price. It didn't work. It won't work. It just won't. You know, everyone knows how Sullivan operates. You know, it's blatantly obvious what we do. So we're going to continue playing these games until we're just going to give Southampton what they're asking for him, even though he's only got a year left. If that's a player we want, that's a player we want. So I do think that Kyle Walker-Peters will be the one that we get in. Tomori is a definitive target. He is. He's definitely liked. As is Konate of Liverpool, who I've mentioned before. The other ones are Somerville and Wilfried Gnonto as well, of Leeds. A lot of wide players that we're looking at. Lots of them. Why is that, I ask you? Right, well, this guy is almost certain that we are trying. So that was a good. If we got all that business done, that's brilliant. It is fantastic. But there's going to be a price to pay. From what I'm told, we are likely to lose one of our big players. Maybe two. I didn't take any notice when I saw Kudus's comments on Heitinger, who's now joined Liverpool as Arne Slot's number 2. He spoke very highly of him. Obviously, he's worked underneath him at Ajax before as well. Really likes Heitinger. From what I'm told, Liverpool are pushing heavily for Kudus, and we would be interested in selling because it's a case of us needing to sell, from what I'm told, you know, because we're doing such a big squad rebuild. The type of players that we're linked with, I mean, Tomori's 40 million, Soule's going to be 35 million. These players ain't going to be cheap. You're looking at about 150 to 200 million pounds for players here. I think we're going to have to sell a big player. We are. It could be Kudus. It goes without saying that Kudus would of course be in favour of going to Liverpool if the opportunity was there. Of course he would. They're a Champions League team. They're a huge club. Any player would. That's no slight on Mohamed Kudus. If that deal is there to be done and it's a possibility, the player will choose to go. He just will. It's as simple as that. It's whether or not West Ham are willing to keep hold of him until the next transfer window, or whether they want to sanction it now to facilitate our rebuild. I don't know. I've got no clue. But I am told that this guy thinks Kudus could possibly move to Liverpool in this window. That's what he said. The other thing he said was Paqueta. Paqueta, he's also a player that we would sell, and we could potentially look at engineering something like a cut price deal. Obviously, we're not going to get the 85 million now. There was only one team looking to pay that anyway, and that was Man City. So you'd probably be looking at something like a 50 million pound deal now with a 25 million upfront cost, which would be the risk that the buying club would take, and then the other 25 million or 30 million, whatever it was, would be conditional on Paqueta being cleared of his charges. So that's something that the club would be interested in, and I'm also told that the player would be interested in that as well. He's got nothing against West Ham. I think he wants out of England. I don't think he wants to stay in England now. I think he's just worried about prison time. But that's still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. I suppose, look, it's only 25 million. If we can engineer that, that's 25 million up front. Whereas if he gets found guilty, we get nothing. You know, we lose a player for nothing. So we could effectively end up losing Kudus and Paqueta in this window. But that said, that's horrific. It is. It's a horrible thought. But if we can bring in the players that we are linked with, our primary targets, if you can bring in Kyle Walker-Peters and solve that right-back problem, if you can bring in Rios in central midfield, if you can bring in Soulé in central midfield, if you can bring in, Somerville or Nonto, and if you can bring in Duran and you can bring in Tony, we've got Guilherme, we've got Bowen, we've got Alvarez. It's a good team, especially if you look at the defence that we could have next season with someone like a Tamori and Kilman at the back. It's probably a more balanced team. It is, but nobody wants to be losing Kudus. We just don't. He's a superstar. He is. He's in my opinion, he's a future Ballon d'Or winner if he goes to the right club, because that's how it works. He's just a supremely talented player. We don't want to lose him. I do think that at some point we will. I hope it isn't in this window. I hope it isn't in this window. Now, what this guy did go on to say as well is that, because I said, why are we taking so long? Why are we taking so long to get these players in? It's doing my head in. And he said it's just West Ham being West Ham. Sullivan never tires of playing the transfer market like this. He thinks he's being clever. He thinks he's playing the other teams, trying to drive deals down. So Tim goes out, identifies his targets, gets it knocked. Duran gets Duran down from 40 million to 33. Push him a bit more. See what you can do. And then all of a sudden, you go into like the last 2 weeks of a transfer window, panic sets in, and we end up paying more. So basically, the closer it gets to deadline day, for players like Duran and everyone else, the power shifts to the selling club. And we end up paying more than what we would have originally because we're over a barrel. Sullivan never learns. He never learns. We will sign players. We will absolutely sign players. Of course we will. But he's going to do it his way. His way is absolutely fucking ridiculous. He's never going to change. The speculation as to why we might be holding up as well is, and this is speculation, is that there could be a cash flow issue. We might need to sell players before we can lay down the money to get other players in, and also stand away from PSR as well, FFP. Sort of stand away from that because we've got players like Aguirre who we are trying to move on. We're desperate to move on, apparently. Could be going for as little as 15 million, which is a 20 million hit on a player who's played one season in two because he was injured for most of the time. The other ones that we are trying to move on as well, I know, are Souček and Antonio, but they've got higher wages and we're struggling to find suitors for those players. So we've got a lot of players that are probably not going to be much use to Lopetegui with the style of football that he wants to play, that we're trying to shift out. That's kind of where we are. So it's an update. Let me know what you think. Obviously, look, it's not gospel. I'm just telling you what I'm being told. So don't shoot the messenger. The Kudus one's a big one, and so is the Paqueta one. But if we can go out and get those players, because make no bones about it, Matthias Soulé is a Paqueta replacement. He is. You're talking a generational talent in Matthias Soulé. He would be fantastic if we got him in. Amazing player if we got Soulé in. We've got Guilherme. Guilherme is going to turn into something special as well. And if we can get Rios in, wow, that's 3 amazing signings. And then all we've got to do is go out, because we've got Bowen for the right-hand side. All we've got to do is go out and get another couple of wingers. And if we're looking at the likes of Somerville and Nonto and Wesley, players like that, if we can go out and get players like that, then that's great. Something's going to happen. All you've got to do really, even without this information that I got earlier on, if you read between the lines of the targets that we're linked with, which is winger, you just got to use your common sense. Someone's going to go, aren't they? They are. It was obviously planned that Paqueta was going to be sold. He was probably going to be funding the majority of this window. It hasn't happened. I think they'll struggle to even get a deal like that, because if we're that desperate to sell him for 25 million effectively, just to recoup something, then surely that's going to tell any club that's looking at buying him, fucking hell, he must be banged to rights. It would do. So I struggle to see us being able to get that deal done, but that's something that we are exploring, that we would be interested in, apparently. But look, anyway, that's it from me. It was a complete transfer ramble. It's a good update. It is a good update. Like I said, I've not spoken to anyone. I've not really read Twitter. I've not done anything for 4 days, 5 days. I've just been getting bored with it. But that is a good update. When things are likely to happen, God only knows. I don't know. I don't know. Nothing's happened since Friday. Anyway, look, that's it from me. as I said earlier on, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, drop a like on the video because it does really help us. Speak to you soon. Come on, you irons.